do. And so what that allows you to do is, for this particular database, is it allows you to create an alert for the search, which I love, because let's say I'm preparing to do some kind of a topic on, I don't know, alternate energy sources or something for a science class. And so, you know, we've talked about it from a factual point of view in the class, and I want kids to maybe explore some different resources, different sources, think about you know, whether wind power is good for Canada or geothermal or what have you. And so we've gone and looked at some articles. I get a series that comes up in my search, so the Canadian magazines, Canadian newspapers and stuff. And so I'm developing my lesson around what I found. But I think to myself, you know, I'm going to do this 2 weeks from now. And so I just want to make sure that I'm getting really the most current articles that I can. So I can actually create an alert for the search that I've done. The search I've done is on, you know, alternate energy. And so because I have an account on the EBSCO server, I click on the create alert for this search. It'll allow me to choose whether I want to be alerted over the next month, or alerted over the next 3 months, or the next 6 months, or the next year. And anytime anything new is added to this kind of search, I don't have to go back and run the search again. It will simply send me a link so that I can come and look at the most recent material. Now, I don't know how often you would use that, but depending on the topic and the grade level and all that kind of stuff, you know what, I think this is a great little plus. And for students who are doing, senior students who are doing a project on something here, to be able to get an emailed reminder when a new article comes out means that the presentation they're going to do allows them to pull up an article that was in the paper today and say, oh, this just in, you know, some company is doing wind power or something. It makes their work seem much more relevant and much more up to date. I put a little link in here to a little tutorial on how to go about creating an account on EBSCO, so it's really quite a simple process, and yeah, it's a great feature. Another thing I like is the research guides. So whenever you do a search, doesn't matter what it is, you'll see in the upper right-hand corner of the search a little box that says research guides, and they give you the first 4 or so off of their list, writing a thesis statement, judging fact and opinion, etc. So these are 1 or 2 page articles that walk students through whatever these things are. Now I've just pasted down below some additional topics. So it gives some steps on how to give an oral presentation, how to cite your sources or create a bibliography, how to write a research paper, how to understand bias. I think there's actually a dozen different things. So you know, I think there's some good things here. Okay, let me just scroll down a little bit further. So the articles themselves, and I see the question here about the grades 5+. I'll get back to that in a moment. The articles are available either in HTML full text or in PDF full text, and sometimes you'll have them available in both formats. So here's an example of an article. So I've chosen the magazine tab, and this is, you know, one of the many choices that has come up. So Energy's Prevailing Winds. It's from the American Spectator magazine. Gives me the date, all that kind of stuff. You'll notice that it gives a link for the HTML full text and a link for the PDF full text. So if I choose the PDF full text, it'll give me the page scanned out of the magazine as if I have the magazine right in front of me. So in some cases, the text features and things in the magazine article are important for understanding what's going on. There might be an illustration or a picture or something like that, or a diagram that you might want to preserve. And so you could post the link to that PDF full text on a class web page. Students, by clicking on that link from home, they would be able to then put in their login credentials in order to get to the article. You could print the PDF and use it in the classroom, or you could even project it up on the wall to use with the kids in the class. If you're bopping through these articles really quickly to find an article that you might want to use in class with the students, I'd suggest clicking on the HTML full text link, because this has no pictures, it's just text, and it will load very quickly. And so you can quickly look, decide whether the reading level is too high, or the topic is too complicated, or the delivery is too biased, or whatever, and maybe then go and look at another article. The HTML full text is sometimes the only format that's available with some of these articles, and the reason for that is that EBSCO was able to negotiate the content of the article, but not the pictures in the article, because oftentimes pictures are sourced separately in magazines, so they'll get the pictures from Getty's Images or something like that, and so EBSCO can't get the rights to reproduce the picture, they can only get the rights to reproduce the text. So I think it's cheaper for them to get the HTML rather than the PDF full text. But in any case, HTML will load faster, it's just not as pretty as far as that goes. So when you select the HTML, you get a whole bunch of different options that come up. PDF, of course, is more like a picture, like a scan. So if you look at the HTML version, you can see that you have a bunch of choices. Every article can be printed or emailed or saved to the desktop. You can export the bibliographic information in a bunch of different formats, and you can even add this to a research folder that you can create on the EBSCO servers. So a student who is maybe doing something over a few weeks might want to create an account on EBSCO separately, and then they can, as they go through and find 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 useful articles, they can add them to their folder, and then when they log back in again, either from home or another session in school, all the articles they've chosen will be sitting there waiting for them. So it's a great way for them to organize their thinking. And I should mention that if you're doing this kind of thing at the post-secondary level, either as a first, second, third year student, or even as a grad student, these kinds of skills are handy, and a student who leaves our system knowing a little bit about how to search a database, how to find stuff, how to create folders, how to save stuff, this is something that is going to be able to transfer even if they're using ProQuest or SIRS or any of the other databases. It all translates. You'll see that there's what's called a persistent link to this record. So the persistent link here is the link that you will share on a website, or you send out an email to a teacher who's asking for an interesting article. You can email them this link, and then when they click on the link, it'll just simply ask them to log into the EBSCO server with whatever credentials you have in your school, and then they can view the article as is. And of course, they have the option of going back and then getting the PDF full text as well. The other thing I like, and I'll just have to mention this, is that all of the HTML articles will read to you. And so that's this little section down here. So I make the joke that this is what Stephen Hawking does when he's not discovering black holes. It is machine read. Okay, so it's not a real person in that sense reading to you. It's the software that's reading. Some of the words don't come out quite right, but I do find that if you switch the accent, then actually it seems somehow more palatable, and the British accent just seems to be that much nicer. I don't know, but anyway. So if you have a student who is text challenged, one of the things that will really be a help to them is to have the computer read the text to them, and they can just plug their earbuds into the back of the desktop computer or on a laptop, and off you go. From home, same thing. Maybe the parents are not English as a first language speakers, and so maybe they can't get help from mom and dad to read through a text. Well, you can have CPOV read it to you. So I think that's a great plus. I believe it also gives you, under the little wheel here, I believe it gives you the option of downloading the MP3 as well. So even for yourself, if you have a number of articles that maybe more scholarly articles that you would like to listen to, like to read, you could actually go and download the MP3s of a bunch of them, put them on your iPod, and then listen to them in the car on the way into work or what have you, just to get on top of some of the reading without actually having to read the text. So that there's some opportunities there. Now, I noticed that one of the participants today has the question, does this come in French? So, unfortunately, Canadian Points of View database doesn't read in French. It doesn't have the automatic translation feature either, and there's virtually no database material in French that's available from a school perspective, and I think and here's the problem. There is a French language database called Repère, which is used by a number of high schools and colleges in Quebec. The problem with Repère is that the articles tend to be kind of like, you know, Le Journal de l'Astrophysique Avancée or something, the Advanced Journal of Astrophysics or something. It's not at all really that useful for elementary or even high school for the most part. It's beyond most of us. And the handful of French language resources that are in EBSCO at this point are things like chasse et pêche, you know, fishing and hunting, or Chatelaine, the Chatelaine magazine, and I think there's one called Bel Age or something, which is for the 50-plus consumer. And there's a couple of other sort of odd, Coup de Pouce is another one, which is sort of like Canadian homemakers in French. And that's really about it. And so it's not really that useful for immersion programs. Really, there's the odd article that you might be able to use, but you know what? It's just, unfortunately, it's not great. I did meet with the EBSCO fellow who is responsible for Western Canada, and every time I see them, I say the same thing. But once again, this was just a couple of days ago. I said, you know, we need to have more French language material in EBSCO. I said, it's not that they don't have magazines in French, and it's not that they don't have kids magazines and adolescent magazines and popular media magazines in French. They've got them. It's just that at this point, nobody's going out and negotiating muscularly enough to get them. And I said to him, you know, we have immersion schools across the province, we have immersion schools across the country, and there's a need for this, and school districts would pay for this. I mean, we have federal money that we can put towards this, and if you build this French language database, we'll come to it. So anyway, off he was going to go to talk to his folks about that to see if there was something they could do. But I mean, you know, there's GeoAdo and Phosphore and Les Débrouillards and L'Actualité. I mean, there's tons of magazines and newspapers in French. You know, it's crazy that we don't have access to them. Anyway, that's my little rant. Arlene?
Kathy has her hand up, and also there was a request just to confirm whether World Book is in French.
Oh, right, okay. Yes, Arlene was just talking in my ear. So World Book Online does have a French version of their kids' encyclopedia, and so that's, but that's not EBSCO, right? That's a different vendor, different product, but they do have a French version of their kids' encyclopedia. They haven't translated the middle school encyclopedia or the advanced encyclopedia. And again, I've spoken to them about, you know, what will it take to translate the middle school and the advanced one. And I said to the World Book vendor, look, you know, we're all looking for a good, reliable, North American context, French language encyclopedia. Please, for heaven's sakes, will you not translate the middle school on the advanced encyclopedia? So, you know, hopefully, you know, we'll see something. Now, that Lindsay has a great little comment about using the field code, the language code, to pull stuff up in CPOV, and there is stuff there. I mean, you will find it, but my experience so far with it anyway is that the articles are not terribly useful. And the thing that makes the CPOV so phenomenal is really the overview articles and the for and against stuff. And so, you know, doing an individual search means that you don't get that sort of that cover page, which, you know, which is unfortunate. So anyway. I'll just kind of move along here because I'm just keeping an eye on the time. I don't want to, there might be some questions, other additional questions. Many of the articles will include the Lexile value in terms of reading level. And so, you know, this is a formula that, you know, looks at sentence length and number of words and number of syllables per word and stuff like that, and then it just, all that together creates a number, and then that number is matched up as a number range to a grade level. And this is just sort of a rule of thumb, and you know, there's no sort of hard and fast rules about this. But so this particular article, Animals Deserve Legal Rights, you can see that it's given a reading level of 1060. And so if we look at the chart, if you click on the number, it actually pulls up the chart. So you don't have to memorize. I always say to people, you divide by 100 and then subtract 2.8. You know, you can just click on it, it'll give you the chart. So you can see that this one is about, well, the 1050, so from about a grade 6 to maybe a grade 8 range, kind of in there. But it really does depend on the context and the content. So an article that talks about something that the students have already looked at or that they are more likely to know, you've done a little work or maybe around vocabulary, around the issues, you may find that a slightly higher reading level won't be a problem. If it's a topic that they haven't looked at all and they don't have a clue, so maybe it's NAFTA, for example, the North American Free Trade Agreement, and maybe the reading level says, oh yeah, grade 6, no problem. But you know, I mean, if the kids don't know what NAFTA is, it won't make any sense at all. So Lindsay has a question about reading level generally. You know, I think that I mean, it's easy enough to get a machine-generated reading level on these things, and I don't know why EBSCO doesn't have it on everything. And I have mentioned the usefulness of this, just even as just a general guide for a teacher, because you know, you might find an article and you think, oh yeah, this is kind of zeros right in on the topic I'm looking at, and it might have like a 1400 Lexile number on it, and you think, oh, okay, so 1400 is first year university. Maybe this is a little bit beyond my grade 5s, right? So, and you know, not to say that you couldn't read it yourself and then use those ideas in a discussion or you know, in setting the frame for the kids, but it is nice to know a little bit about the take on the article before you dive in with both feet. So, okay, so let's just move on a little bit more. So now you can do independent searches on Canadian Points of View, which is fine. So if in that search window I could type in anything I want and I could pull up stuff. But you'll notice the difference between the two screenshots that I put here. The top one is a search that doesn't use one of the preset issues. And so I'd still get, you know, Canadian magazines, international magazines, all that kind of thing. But and in this case, whatever this topic was for videos, this penal system I think I put in. But you'll notice in the second screen with the red arrow, if I do one using the preset searches, then what I will get is that Points of View tab that comes up first, which gives me that overview that's so important. That's such a key thing of this particular database. So how are some of the ways that you could use a Canadian Points of View with your staff and your students and that kind of thing? One of the things that I think Canadian Points of View is good for is obviously for senior students, grades 11, 12 for sure. Even I think you could start kids at the grade 8 and up level using some of these things. If they're doing a topic for a debate, they're wanting to look at some of the opinions around a topic, so you've looked at the fact stuff in class and now you want to kind of move a little bit more into what are people thinking, what are the pros and cons, that kind of thing. This is it's great for giving kids the sense of how it's possible to argue two sides of an issue, because you know, one of the reasons why all of these topics are controversial is because it is possible to, on the one hand, make a case for the topic using lots of proof and references and that kind of thing, and then on the flip side, say, no, I disagree, and here's why, and here's a good argument, and here's all the reasons and resources why I disagree with this topic. I mean, if there was no counter-argument, then these wouldn't be controversial issues because it would be obvious. I mean, you know, cannibalism is bad. Right? There really is no other argument for something like that. However, you know, genetically modified organisms or issues around Aboriginal people and gun control and monarchy and media bias, and so these are all topics that have some for and against issue. I've just picked a few at random and just looked to see where they might fit. And so, you know, in a science class where you're dealing with some of these topics, you could find some very interesting articles to use with your students, either as an entry point or as a follow-up position or something like that. Under socials, you know, you're studying Quebec or women's rights or Aboriginal people or gun control or the monarchy or something like that. In an English class, you might be doing a lit circle where the theme might be poverty or homelessness or violence. Why not look to see what the overview of that topic, that issue is from a Canadian perspective, just to give some anchoring, some framework for that topic before you launch into doing the novel study. I think what this does is it gives us a little bit more of a sense of what's going on in Canada, because, you know, like it or not, we tend to be influenced hugely by what's happening south of the border. We see it in the media, we hear it, it's in the movies and that kind of thing. And in some cases, we tend to be a little bit less on top of the Canadian perspective, or at least the kids are not on top of the Canadian perspective, and in some cases we're not either. And so, you know, and I think, you know, what do you actually know about bioethics in Canada, or NAFTA, or drug policy in Canada, or Arctic drilling from a Canadian perspective? We often hear about that from an American perspective. The overview topic is ideal for that. I think that article, that position paper, gives you a sense of what the big questions are. Now, I'm not saying that you will be Einstein when you finish reading the article, but what it does do is it gives you a good grounding, even if it's not something that you would want to use directly with the students in the class. For teachers who have changed a grade level or picking up a subject area they're not feeling 100% on, or they're doing a new unit, these overview articles they give you a bit of a grounding in what the issues are and what things you might want to explore a little bit more with your class. So, okay, we have about 10 minutes left. Can I just show you? Can we just pick a topic and look at that in a little bit more detail, or were some other questions? Just looking here at the chat. Some examples of magazines available. Well, I can show you that if you like. If we can just take a look at one of the topics. Oh, Enbridge pipeline. Okay. Let's just see if I can pull up this. Actually, I was just going to pick something that might be sort of more Canadian than anything else. But so let me just show you what one of these looks like. So I've just picked multiculturalism as a topic just to see, because if you look up multiculturalism from an American perspective, or you just Google multiculturalism, you might not get sort of the Canadian perspective that you're looking for. You might end up with the U.S. perspective. So multiculturalism, the overview. So here's our text here. What you get is you know, the result list here. You've got, I can actually play it in a British accent if I like, or I think I have some choices here. I can choose Australian too. I kind of like the Australian accent, which is kind of fun. So this is a similar layout to what you'll see in all of the articles. So it gives a little bit of an overview about what multiculturalism is, what it means from a Canadian perspective. We have some historical things here happening. So in the 1970s, this happened, and then, you know, how we represent hyphenated citizenship. Then there's some vocabulary that you're likely to come across when you're talking about multiculturalism: bicultural, bilingual, monoculture, reasonable accommodation, those kinds of things. Then a bit of a history lesson. So what's the multicultural perspective in Canada? Kind of walks you through, then talks about multiculturalism today. It has things like the Quebecois student who brought a kirpan to school and what happened. We've got the issue with the RCMP having the right to wear a turban. So there's a whole bunch of things here that are fairly recent. I mean, you might not find this in a book, but it's nicely written up here. It actually, I think the last reference here, talk about the September 11th and some of the things that happened around that, and then what's that done in Canada, and then we have 2006 reference to Harper apologizing for the Chinese head tax. And so this is a great overview of the situation. You can see at the bottom there's a great bibliography of material, and then some additional links, and then just a little blurb about the author and the co-author of the of this article. So this is actually quite nice. Now you can see on the side here we've got a link to the for multiculturalism, or some aspect of multiculturalism, and then the counterpoint article. We also have a guide to the critical analysis, which we'll take a look at in a moment. And then we have a couple of other articles here that they've pulled out. Canadian-style multiculturalism doesn't work in Quebec. Another article, the discontinuities of multiculturalism, and then some of the research guides here down the side. So this is actually quite interesting stuff. How are the writers and authors selected? So EBSCO looks for Canadians who have written on this topic before, and contracts them to write a little bit of an overview. So they might be scientists, they might be political commentators, they might be people working in the area of the humanities. And so they'll get someone to write the overview topic, and then they'll find people who feel one way or the other on the topic, and then ask them to write the point or the counterpoint article. And if we just take a quick look at one of these articles here, so if we look at the point article, for example, so if we scroll right through to the bottom, you can see that there's a bunch of references as well at the bottom of this article, as well as some websites. So and so you can see here's the thing that tells you about who the person is, or the people that are writing the article. So you get a sense of where this comes from. And I think it's just all very interesting, both for students and for teachers to look at. The Guide to Critical Analysis, we'll just take one quick look at that. So the Guide to Critical Analysis. So again, this is a little bit boilerplate, so you'll see a lot of the same kinds of things. So what to do before you start reading the article, so it gives you kind of a walkthrough of what to do. And then it gives you some things to do while you're reading, so taking some notes, take a look at the terms, see if you can organize the ideas that you're pulling out of the part that you're reading. They have a little section on judging fact and opinion. So this part is the same in all of the critical guides, but the examples that they give are examples that relate to multiculturalism as opposed to gun control or whatever the other thing is. And then at the end, they give you just a few more things to think about the topic, and a little bit about, if you're going to debate it, what might you say? Okay.
Lindsay asked whether or not, how you can make a student account. You might want to show them.
Right. So making a student account, up here in the top section, when you come to the main, we'll just go back to the main page here. I'll just let it just load up here. So you have the sign in section. So if I click on sign in, what it's going to do is it's going to ask me to put in my username and password. If I don't have one already, then there's just a little button beside here that says create a new account, and then you can fill in some information, so name, email address, username, come up with a password, a secret question in case you forget, and then you save the changes. Primarily what this does is this allows you to email yourself things, because once you've logged in, of course, then it makes it easy to log in things, and it also helps keep track of, these are the 3 articles I found that are really good on this, so I can tag those and tuck them away in my folder, and then I can come back to it later, and then you know, I can add or subtract, or if I find a better one or what have you. So it's just handy. It's not required because you can do the searching. You can even email without necessarily having an account. I mean, you don't have to have an account to do that. But what it does do is it just gives you that the ability to save a folder, and it also gives you the ability to ask EBSCO to email you when there's new articles on the topic. So, okay, I think that's pretty much all the stuff that I was going to say. Let's just go back. Yeah, and it's the same account for all the EBSCO databases, because this, as I said, is just a front door to EBSCO, if you'll remember. And so, so if you're creating an account on Canadian Points of View, you're creating it in all of EBSCO. So anyway, we're back to the multiculturalism. You can see there's Canadian magazines, and so they sort these by relevance. So there's Canada and the World Backgrounder, there's the Canadian Diversity magazine. A lot of these are from that one. There's Maclean's, there's Alberta Views, so there's a number of these. So these are sorted by relevance. The newspaper articles are sorted by default by date descending. So we have, here's an article that's from today's paper, right? You know, the Kitchener Record or whatever, you know, et cetera. And then they have, under reference books, for this particular topic, there's a bunch of things. You know, this book, Before Canada, this book, this chapter out of the book called Canada, and they have some other articles written. There's a biographies tab, there's a radio and TV news transcript tab, so this pulls up something from just this month on CBC television. And then in this case we have some images, in some cases you've got videos and other resources available.
I would like to thank you, Gordon, for again helping us along with the job that we do. You are very generous with your time, and we certainly appreciate it. And I would like to remind everybody of the next session, which is part 2 of Squeezing the Juice Out of EBSCO, Novelist Plus, with Lindsay Ross on March the 5th. And we also have a winner to announce for our draw. Everyone who got their names in before the 15th of February, excuse me, including the 15th of February, and I noticed there were some late night people who registered. Their names were put into a hat, and my husband selected the name, so that we know that it was purely proper and accurate. And the winner is Catherine Gerard, and I'm not sure if Catherine is with us right now. I don't think so, but we will let her know. So the winner of our draw for an iPad mini is Catherine Gerard. So I will turn off my mic so Gordon can say anything he wants at the end, but I would like just to take this opportunity again to thank Gordon and to remind you that the next session is March 5th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. I hope that you picked up a few pointers. For me, the trick is to pick one thing at a time, just to make sure that I don't overwhelm my teachers. And hopefully once they see how great one of the resources is, they'll want to go back and see where the other ones are and how they might use them. And for me, the trick is to find one thing. If I'm going into a school and I know that they're all working on, you know, pick something, if I can tie my presentation to that, then they're all happy campers. So thank you, everyone. I'm hoping you got a few pointers for your presentations, both to staff and your work you do with students. And good luck with squeezing the juice out of EBSCO.